In my most glorious year, I dumped the Luther family's young master, and shot him in the heart for good measure. He held a grudge, attempting to assassinate me 800 times a year. Finally, when I was trapped and unable to protect myself, Christopher seized the opportunity. The cold gun muzzle slid down from the small of my back, reaching between my legs. The voice was icy and merciless. Should the gun go in, or should I? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I froze for a moment. Say that again, Christopher sneered, pressing the gun harder against me. He repeated slowly, bullet goes in, you die. If I go in, you'll die too. Choose one. Kimberly. I turned around. Christopher's excessively handsome face wore a mix of 3 parts mockery and 3 parts satisfaction. Except right now, our position was undeniably intimate. I half leaned on the table. He stood behind me, his hand beneath me. I blinked and turned my head. I choose you. I deliberately stuck out my butt to emphasize. Christopher, I choose you. The next second, Christopher's composed expression vanished. Breaths grew heavier. He pressed his hand firmly against my waist, forbidding me to move. Gnashing teeth. Kimberly, you really never change your wicked ways. My waist ached sharply where it had been pinched, biting back tears. How do you plan to kill me this time, like before? Making me pass out on the bed, or? Christopher bent down and sealed my lips with his. There was no tenderness, only the savage gnashing of teeth. As if in revenge, he bit my lips until they bled, greedily sucking again. I sighed inwardly and responded to him gently, not sure whose breathing became ragged first. I was flipped over. The atmosphere grew scorching. Christopher pinned me against the table, the gun moving upward from my abdomen to rest over my heart. Kimberly, I will really kill you. As if warning me, more like a warning to himself, I lifted my foot and hooked it around his waist. Sure, let me have one last pleasure before I die, so our time together won't have been in vain. The next second, the bullet is chambered, heavy and cold against my heart. Just a twitch of his index finger, and he could return that gunshot from years ago. I watched Christopher. He must have run all the way here, his forehead strands damp with sweat. I tightened my legs forcefully, forcing him closer. A bead of sweat trickled down onto my collarbone as my hair swayed. I smirked, so hard. Christopher, bang, a gunshot. It left my ears ringing. The person who burst through the door collapsed to the ground, a hole in their forehead. Then, countless footsteps approached. Christopher grabbed me by the waist and pulled me up. He thrust fiercely. Just wait, I'll fucking kill you sooner or later. He carried me over his shoulder and quickly left through the secret passage. I'm feeling sick from all the jolting. I can actually run on my own. Shut up. All right, after a night of fleeing, Christopher and I are temporarily safe. We've settled in at a hotel. He got injured while protecting me. I remained unharmed. I once said he was the most qualified bodyguard. Watching Christopher tend to his own wounds, I couldn't bear it in the end. Let me do it. Taking the gauze from his hand, I wrapped my arms around his waist and bandaged the wound on his abdomen. I was clearly carefully dressing the wound, yet he lifted my head, saying, Christopher, we're in great danger now. He pushed me back. I sit on the bed. It's you. Very dangerous. Christopher kneels on one knee at the edge of the bed, leaning closer to me. He pinches my chin. Kimberly, I told you, I'll fuck you dead. He lowered his head and kissed her. This kiss was different from before, filled with tenderness. It made me momentarily dazed. He used to cherish me like this too. I wrapped my arms around Christopher's neck and responded to him passionately. Then, she turned over and pinned him down. She kissed his earlobe. You know I don't like being passive. He was injured. Just wrapped it up. Christopher rested his hands behind his head, waiting at ease. Outside the window, there are many who want to kill me. Every street, every corner. Inside the window, Christopher wants me dead, fiercely gripping my waist, completely disregarding his own injuries. I could only try my best to brace against his thigh, pleading with him in a weak voice, save some strength, or we'll both die. Christopher sneered, dying together. Wouldn't that be perfect? He wouldn't listen. I could only reach out, bracing against his waist and abdomen. pressed against his wound. Hiss, Kimberly. In return, I got an even fiercer retort, but fortunately, he didn't continue after it was over. I went to the bathroom to wash up. When I came out, Christopher was cleaning his wound again. Seeing me, he sneered. The young miss is as cold-blooded and heartless as ever. After all, I saved your life. Can't I take a little more in return? I was too exhausted to bother arguing with him. Fell asleep directly on the bed. Christopher gazed with a deep, distant look, let out a heavy sigh, then got into bed and held me tightly. In the darkness, his voice was desolate. Kimberly, it would be wonderful if we could die together. In the middle of the night, I opened my eyes. The person beside me was not sleeping peacefully, their brows tightly furrowed. Afraid I might run away, he clung to me like an octopus. Lowering my gaze, I saw the scar on his chest, just 2 millimeters from the heart. Christopher, I slowly exhaled a breath, carefully moving the arm around my waist. I rose quietly. Right now, I'm too dangerous. Stay away from me. Without another glance, I turned away, leaving resolutely. Outside, Luke had been waiting for a long time. Master, everything has been arranged. Are you all right? He looked concerned, wanting to reach out to steady me but afraid of overstepping boundaries. My face was pale, and my legs felt weak. I directly reached out and leaned on him for support. Luke hurriedly steadied me. This time, I've really capsized. In the past, I always appeared sickly and weak to others, letting everyone think I was a feeble person who couldn't lift a finger or bear any burden. Played the act too much, and now I'm paying for it. Poisoned. This time I'm really going to become a sickly person, head of the family. Christopher coming to find me was something I hadn't expected. I could have escaped without him. Just would have lost a layer of skin in the process. Glanced upstairs. Don't worry about him. Let's go. He is now the young master of the Luther family, and anyone who wants to mess with him would have to think twice. All right. When the sound of the engine roared, Christopher inside the house opened his eyes. His gaze was deep and heavy. He walked to the window, watching the person sitting on the back of the motorcycle downstairs, laughed once, bitter, self-mocking. Why can't I ever learn my lesson? Serves you right to get shot. I don't remember how I got back to the base. I passed out halfway. When I woke up, there was a crowd of people around me. How are you feeling? Family head. Damn that Neil. The family head treated him like a younger brother, and he actually betrayed the family head. City G already has many who envy the family head, and the Madison family has even more enemies. Neil's betrayal. Done. I waved my hand dismissively. Luke helped me up and calmly explained. The family head knew Neil would betray us, so he turned it to his advantage. Don't make a fuss. The crowd instantly fell silent. I leaned against Luke's chest, utterly exhausted. If Neil wants to be the family head, let him have a taste of it and enjoy himself for a while. After all, the Madison family now has enemies lurking everywhere, eyeing them covetously. Let him take the brunt of it. Spread the word that I've gone missing. If I were to die, I'm afraid some people would be worried. Luke clearly guessed it, his brows furrowing instantly. Master, Christopher, will he affect your plans? Never, except it was. Master, Christopher is here, and he specifically asked for you. I was startled. The base is hidden, known only to insiders. Christopher, how did he find out? Outside. Christopher's carefree voice could be heard. Madison family head, didn't you say yesterday you wanted me to kill you? Ran away overnight. Are you scared already? Instantly, my face turned both dark and red. Luke looked stern. I'll go chase him away. I held him back. Let him in. Christopher, how did you know about this place? I'm curious. Before long, Christopher walked in. His demeanor was relaxed, his steps unhurried, rogue and wild. The next second, the gaze locked onto me, seeing me weak all over, pale-faced. His pupils contracted slightly. What's wrong with you? He quickly approached but was stopped by my men. His expression instantly turned fierce, especially when they saw me leaning Luke's embrace, clenched fists, tongue pressing against the cheek. Kimberly, when did you become so weak? I didn't even use much strength last night. Gritting teeth with a hint of jealousy, and even glared at Luke, clearly meant for him to hear. Luke has another identity to the outside world, my fiancé. Christopher, while plotting my assassination, he also frequently opposed him. I waved my hand with a headache, signaling the others to leave. In the room, only I, Luke and Christopher remained. I sat up straight from Luke's embrace. He stood up, positioning himself between me and Christopher, afraid Christopher would harm me. I glanced at Christopher. How did you find this place? Christopher snorted coldly. With a meaningful glance at the shoes by the bed, Luke immediately crouched down and pried a miniature tracker from the sole. I had specifically checked my clothes when going to shower last night, but I forgot about the shoes, Christopher said leisurely. Last night, Kimberly was just too passionate. Enough. Luke frowned and interrupted Christopher, with an unfriendly tone. What do you want by coming here? Christopher snorted coldly, his words laced with sarcasm. Jealous. What right do you have to be jealous? When I was with Kimberly, you didn't even know where you were. What does it matter to take her fiancé's place? In the end, I'm still the only one who can serve her. Luke closed his eyes and took a deep breath. I understand. Speechless, at the same time, I also feel a bit awkward. Christopher, he stared at me, enunciating each word deliberately. Kimberly, the only one who can kill you is me. I tilted my head. I didn't quite understand. The latter had already turned away, his back cold and indifferent. Before long, someone came in to report that Christopher was insisting on staying here. I had a bit of a headache. Let him be. Luke looked at me, hesitating to speak. In the end, nothing was said. Poisoned and physically weakened, I lay in the room for 2 days. It's been chaotic outside for the past 2 days. Neil has already taken the position of head of the Madison family, enjoying unparalleled glory, just like me back in the day. His alliance with the Ormond family was within my expectations. After all, back then, I had also considered forming an alliance with the Luther family. I thought with Christopher around, it would come naturally. I just didn't expect Kimberly. The voice of Christopher came from the doorway. I turned around, Christopher wearing a tank top, his muscles bulging, holding my lunch in his hands. My gaze falls on his waist and abdomen. His injury, it should be fine by now. Noticing my gaze, Christopher curved the corner of his mouth. He directly lifted the hem of his clothes. The wound had already healed. His abs were distinctly defined. If you want to see it, just say so. I'm more generous than you. You used to love mooching off me the most. At that, my face darkened slightly. I couldn't figure out Christopher's intentions right now. Previously, when he repeatedly attempted to assassinate me, I could clearly sense his hatred. I could threaten him. I could outmaneuver him. I could even retaliate with lethal force. But after that night, I suddenly couldn't understand. Christopher placed the meal on the table. Come over and lift me from the chair. I didn't refuse. No strength. Christopher didn't put me on the stool. Instead, he directly sat me on his lap, with one arm around my waist, picked up the chopsticks with one hand. Seems like they're about to feed me. See, doesn't this feel just like the old days? I didn't respond, just bit down on the food he picked for me. Knew something was wrong the moment it entered my mouth. Christopher rambled on. Back when you were in poor health, you barely touched the ground. Wherever we went, I carried you on my back or in my arms, even fed you meals by hand. Back then, I didn't even dare to kiss you, afraid you might faint from the intensity. Every night I had to take care of myself in the bathroom. Kimberly, your acting is truly remarkable. You fooled everyone, including me. He spoke with pointed meaning. My hands resting on my knees gradually clenched. Are you planning to repeat your old tricks now? I turned my head. Christopher looked somber, trying to fake being sick to fool me again. Are you? Before my eyes, Christopher's face gradually grew blurry. Only Luke knew about the poisoning. I raised my hand, wanting to touch Christopher's face, but was coldly brushed aside by him. Kimberly, now that you're in my hands, you're finished. I was Christopher's shoulder. Consciousness gradually faded away. When I woke up again, everything around me was pitch black. I struggled to sit up. I realized my hands were shackled with iron chains. Awake now. In the darkness, Christopher's voice was calm and indifferent. A snap sound. He turned on the light. I narrowed my eyes slightly. Directly ahead, Christopher sat on a chair, legs crossed, a cigarette held between fingertips. The previous tenderness was gone. The coldness and hatred from when he tried to assassinate me had returned. The aura was sinister. My right hand is shackled by an iron chain extending from the wall. I tugged at it. The chain made a grating noise. Christopher sneered. Well, it was all crafted according to your original demands. I sighed. Changed to a more comfortable sitting position. Not bad. Christopher stared at me, slowly exhaling a puff of smoke. He stubbed out the cigarette and stood up. The leather shoes made a dull sound as they stepped on the floor. Christopher approached the bedside and pinched my chin. I was forced to tilt my head up. He lifted his knee and pressed it onto the bed, leaning in closer. Kimberly, I'm asking you one last time. His voice carried a barely perceptible tremor. His other hand gripped my wrist. The chain was pulled, the sound abrupt. My hand was pressed against his chest by him, beneath the thin fabric. The palm could clearly feel that scar. Why? Christopher stared intently at me. Afraid to miss the slightest emotion on my face, I pursed my lips, wanting to withdraw my hand, but he pulled it back forcefully. 3 years ago. Was this gunshot forced upon you by someone or, Christopher? I interrupted him, staring straight into his eyes. I'm bored. You're useless now, that's all. Instantly, Christopher was engulfed in a surge of violent energy. The hand gripping my chin suddenly tightened. Say it again. His eyes were bloodshot, veins bulging at his neck. Barely restraining himself, I smiled. Raise a hand, gently touch his cheek. Originally, the reason I chose you as my bodyguard was because you're good-looking. I just never expected that you'd turn out to be the young master of the Luther family. But since you can't be of use to me, the words that followed were swallowed by Christopher. He bit me fiercely. The taste of blood filled my mouth. At the same time, the hand gripping my chin slid down to my neck. Fingers tighten. I feel suffocated. Instinctively open my mouth to breathe. Christopher takes advantage and drives straight in, taking my last breath of oxygen. Just when I thought I was going to be kissed to death, he regained his senses and let go of me. I collapsed onto the bed, gasping for air. My chest heaved violently. Christopher isn't much better either, struggling to suppress the urge to kill me. Fists clenched, eyes bloodshot. Good, very good, Kimberly. At this very moment, murderous intent surges. Christopher found himself utterly ridiculous. Even after taking a bullet to the chest, losing half his life, he was still wondering if she had been forced into it. How could I even think of going back to how things were with her? How ridiculous. After Christopher left, I collapsed onto the bed, gazing at the swaying leaves outside the window. I was lost in thought. 15 years ago, on a pitch-black night just like this one. Father brought back a group of boys and told me to choose one as my personal bodyguard. Christopher was among them, pale and beautiful. I took a liking to him at first sight. After rigorous training, Christopher became the most outstanding bodyguard. He never left my side. In the unpredictable city G, at the Madison household, where everyone harbors ulterior motives, Christopher is the only one I can trust. Gradually, no one knows who crossed the line first, and so, step by step, we fell deeper. He is my most devoted follower, willing to go through fire and water for me. It was I who pushed him away with my own hands. I close my eyes, a dull ache in the chest, breathing feels like burning in the lungs, drifting in and out of sleep. Waking up groggily again, burning all over, weak and limp, running a fever after all. In a daze, I saw a familiar figure. Christopher. The voice came out hoarse the moment it was spoken. The figure stood by the bed, looking down from above. Perhaps the fever had addled the brain. I pitifully grabbed the hem of his clothes, acting coquettishly. I feel unwell. Christopher, hold me. The latter's breath grew heavy. He mercilessly brushed my hand away. This trick won't work on me, Kimberly. My hand hit the edge of the bed and fell limply. I sobbed quietly. I hate you, Christopher, I hate you. My already oxygen-deprived brain became even more incapable of thought, crying until I passed out. Christopher tensed for a moment. Instinctively reaching out, frozen in midair once again, the resolute expression began to waver. His reason told him he should turn away, yet his body refused to obey. trembling fingers touched the scorching skin, instantly throwing everything into disarray. Kimberly, Kimberly. An hour later, the doctor's face was filled with worry. She has a very weak constitution and is physically frail. Combined with not eating for a full day and night, it led to a sudden high fever. But there seems to be something else going on. You'd better take her for a thorough checkup. Christopher nodded, his brows furrowed tightly. He never expected Kimberly to suddenly deteriorate to such an extent. Just moments ago during their confrontation, she had been full of energy. Had he overlooked something? Water. On the bed, Kimberly looked pale with cracked lips. Christopher immediately poured a cup of warm water, helped her sit up, and leaned her against his chest. He suddenly noticed Kimberly had lost weight. Her shoulders were gaunt, her back frail, as if he would shatter with the slightest force. The overwhelming hatred from before was unexpectedly replaced by tenderness, especially Kimberly after drinking water. Her cheek unconsciously nuzzled against his chest. Christopher closed his eyes. The hand holding the water glass tightened, trembling. The scar on his chest reminded him of all he had endured, yet it was also there that compassion and softness emerged. A soft click sound. Christopher set down the water glass, looking down at the person in his arms, unconsciously lowered his head. His chin rested lightly on the top of her head, let out a heavy sigh. Christopher tightened his arms, holding her close in his embrace. What on earth was he supposed to do? By the time my consciousness returned, I had no idea how much time had passed. Opening my eyes, I saw flowers swaying in the wind on the windowsill. The curtain beside it billowed and fell. The dazzling sunlight flickered with the swaying of the curtain. It fell upon the person by the window, warm, gentle. This scene left me somewhat spellbound. There was a long-lost sense of familiarity, just like every morning after in the past. The moment I opened my eyes, what I saw was Christopher's carefully picked flowers, and the deliberate allure of his beauty meant to seduce me. Now, that indifferent and aloof gaze swept over, bringing me back to my senses. Only then did I see clearly. Christopher was holding. It was the Madison family's invitation. He casually tossed the invitation aside. His tone was indifferent. Neil said he could represent the Madison family and, putting past grievances aside, collaborate with me, only for. He paused, staring straight at me. Our common enemy. I propped myself up to sit. I gathered my thoughts. Fragments of memories surfaced in my mind, too vague. I can't recall clearly. The poisoning has left my body far too weak, but it seems like. Christopher hugged me. Kimberly, are you spacing out? Christopher said in a displeased tone. I looked up. Oh, right. I'm now the common enemy for both of you. But you won't collaborate. Christopher scoffed lightly. What? So sure I can't let go of those years of feelings. I paused for a moment. The Madison family and the Luther family have a generational feud. Your father isn't dead yet. He wouldn't allow it. Otherwise, back then, I wouldn't have fired that shot. Christopher fell silent. He pressed his tongue against the inside of his cheek, clearly irritated. Fortunately, at that moment, a servant brought in the meal. Christopher gave a glance, and the servant carefully placed the food on the table by the bed. My stomach had been growling with hunger for a while. But I tugged at the iron chain on my wrist. It's heavy, and I need to use the bathroom. I knew I was running a fever, but upon waking, there was no sticky discomfort on my body. Clearly, Christopher had washed my body. But he couldn't replace me in going to the bathroom. Christopher let out a cold laugh upon hearing this. Is that so? Hold it in. Christopher, I'm not joking with you. The latter raised an eyebrow. Do I look like I'm joking with you? Damn. I glared at him resentfully. Turned sideways to get off the bed. The length of the chain is enough for me to sit at the table and eat, but it's far from enough to reach the bathroom. I find the food rather tasteless. At this moment, Christopher spoke leisurely. If you're asking for help, you should have the attitude of someone asking for help. Do you still think you're the Madison family's young lady? I'm not just the Madison family's young lady. I'm also the Madison family's head, but now I'm under someone else's roof. I turned my head and spoke in a high-pitched voice. Christopher, brother, please, I beg you, you and I are the best in the world. Christopher stiffened slightly. He walked over with a somber expression. I looked up and spoke sweetly, but the next moment, Christopher pressed his finger against my lips, with a somewhat amused tone. Kimberly, who said we're the best of friends, you liar. His last words were too soft and indistinct. I didn't catch what he said. I blinked my eyes and puckered my lips to kiss his finger. Christopher instantly stiffened. His breathing grew heavy. He curled his lips. I haven't fulfilled the Madison family head's request yet. His words set off alarm bells in my mind. I turned to flee. Christopher easily caught me by the waist. You were the one who tempted me first. Let's reminisce, Kimberly. The moment my lips were sealed, I was lifted and straddled Christopher. With a click, the handcuffs unlocked. Christopher grabbed my wrist and kissed it. You used to like it a lot. I finally found a chance to speak. No, lie. He pressed his hand against my waist. The posture was ambiguous, the atmosphere charged, yet his voice carried a hint of cold severity. Since you've come with me, you'll have to listen to me. The payment, it must be paid. He knew about it. I tilted my head back, my heart in torment. Tears were forced from the corners of my eyes. Christopher, it's not what you think. My base isn't safe either. Christopher responded quietly. Be good, hold it in for now. When being carried to the bathroom, I was already drenched in sweat. Clung onto Christopher like a sloth. He turned on the shower, and warm water trickled down. When I was too weak to hold on and about to slip, he lifted me up with a gentle bounce. Kimberly, this isn't like you. It hasn't been that long. I interrupted him with a whimper. Getting old. My body can't keep up anymore. Christopher looked gloomy. Is that so? I leaned on his shoulder, panting, and asked softly, can I go with you to see Neil? That's your real purpose, right? I shut my mouth and pretended to be dead. My butt got slapped hard. Christopher mocked himself. Sometimes I really admire you. You can actually act as if nothing happened, still handling me the same way as before, ridiculously. I still fall for it, damn it, to be honest. I can't quite figure out what my current relationship with Christopher is either, but there are some things I need him for, need to use him. I didn't want to drag him into this, never thought he'd chase all the way to the base. Since he doesn't want to stay away from me, then I will push him further away. Hating me is better than loving me. At least when the truth comes out, he won't be hurt. Christopher was reluctant in words, but when he went to see Neil, he still took me along. In the car, he lounged lazily. When you brought Neil back, did you ever think he would betray you? I remained silent for a moment. Neil is father's illegitimate child. It was me who personally brought him back. Father has 2 other sons besides me. They were born to the stepmother, at odds with me. I brought Neil back precisely to sow discord among them. Neil has always been obedient and submissive in front of me. Somehow, he has also developed ambitions, but I suppose it makes sense, after all. We share the same blood. I twitched the corner of my mouth. People's hearts are fickle. It's only natural. Christopher shifted his gaze. Are people's hearts truly fickle? I averted my gaze from him and looked out the car window. Before long, we arrived at the place Neil had agreed to meet. Christopher rarely became serious. Come up with me, or wait in the car. I'll wait for you in the car. Christopher nodded, then handed me a listening device. Seeing my confusion, he smiled. Don't you want to know how your dear little brother plans to deal with you? I reached out and took it. I can probably guess. As expected of the Madison family head, he snorted and didn't linger any longer. I sat in the car, fiddling with the eavesdropping device, glanced at Christopher's retreating figure. Just as I was about to enter the elevator, he turned and gave me a look, then tapped the earpiece on my ear. I knew it was a 2-way eavesdropping device. I could hear the movements on his side. He could hear mine too. The elevator doors slowly closed, cutting off Christopher's line of sight. I tossed the listening device onto the seat. Exit the car. Luke emerged from the shadows. Master, shall we go now? I nodded. Meanwhile, after exiting the elevator, Christopher heard only silence through his headphones. He smiled self-deprecatingly. He knew it. She wouldn't obey obediently. Neil waited in the private room for Christopher, dressed in a suit. A wolf in sheep's clothing. Christopher pushed the door open and entered. At the sight of him, she let out a disdainful snort. Neil paid no attention to Christopher's attitude. Looking back, what about her? Christopher crossed his long legs and raised an eyebrow. Who? Neil stared at the doorway for a while, after confirming Kimberly hadn't followed him. A sudden wave of irritation washed over him. He knew the poison he had administered all too well. Without the antidote, Kimberly will never recover. Yet, she didn't come. Was it intentional? Was she certain he would soften? Neil downed the drink in his glass, suppressing the restlessness in his heart, speaking slowly. I know it was you that night. Come to think of it, we've known each other for almost 10 years now. I've seen everything between you and Kimberly. He stared at Christopher. I once thought you would be my brother-in-law. Who would have thought? Kimberly, in order to seize control of the Madison family, would follow our father's orders and shoot you. How ruthless. Neil clicked his tongue and shook his head. Christopher lowered his eyelids slightly and picked up the wine glass on the table. 3 years ago, the Madison family was in chaos. Second brother and third brother died one after another. He couldn't even count how many dirty deeds he had handled in this. He was willing to Kimberly charge into battle, just didn't expect it. In the end, her gun would be pointed at him. Mr. Madison uttered the words. He is a Luther, and the Madisons and the Luthers are sworn enemies. Child, kill him, and I will pass the family leadership to you. She didn't hesitate. As you command, Father. Nor did she show any mercy. With a loud bang, the bullet pierced through his heart. Christopher closed his eyes briefly. The liquor burns down the throat, scorching the heart. A dull ache persists. Neil sneers. I thought you hated her, and yet, you actually saved her. What? After being her bodyguard for over a decade, have you really become her dog? The esteemed Luther family heir, who could have returned in glory, insists on clinging to her side. In the end, not only did I lose half my life, but I also became City G's biggest joke. Christopher's gaze turned sharp. Lethal intent lurked beneath. Neil showed no fear whatsoever. Let's make a deal. I know you've returned to the Luther family these past few years, but you've gained no trust and struggled to seize power. Hand over Kimberly to me, and I'll help you claim the position of family head. What say you? Christopher laughed as if he'd heard a joke. The Ormond family gave you the same line, didn't they? City G now stands in a tripartite balance, mutual checks and balances. After the Madison family's upheaval, the Ormond family seized the opportunity and recruited Neil. That doesn't mean he would do something so foolish. Neil is shrewd, but in the end, he was too impatient. Not as Kimberly, who is steady. Christopher stood up listlessly and brushed off his clothes. If that's all you have to say, then there's no need for us to continue this conversation. Neil spoke up. Luke is one of my men, Master. Here is the antidote. Luke handed me a pill. I held it in my hand and examined it carefully. How did you get this? Neil wouldn't hand over the antidote so easily. Luke offered no explanation, merely saying, just trust me, family head. I glanced at him. Luke, though he's my subordinate and fiancé, yet there are many times when I can't see through him. All right, I toss the pill into my mouth, chew it up and swallow. Let's go meet Raymond. The Ormond family can win over Neil, naturally. I can also win over other members of the Ormond family. The Ormond family's eldest son Raymond, a young genius, unparalleled in wit, but due to an accident, he became disabled and had to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. I had seen him a few times. The unwillingness in his eyes was all too familiar to me. Along with it came a sense of aloofness. But I never expected Luke's method of bringing someone to be so direct. In the room, Raymond was tied up tightly. His mouth was sealed with tape. The wheelchair lay overturned to the side. I glanced at Luke. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who lacks tact. Luke avoided my gaze. He coughed twice. He's not cooperating. I walked over and tore off Raymond's duct tape. Before he could speak, he sneered first. What? The Ormond family has won over Neil, and now you're here to win me over. Tisk, clever. Then think about it. 2 minutes for you. Raymond glanced at Luke. No need to think. He enunciated each word clearly. Impossible. Logically speaking, Raymond shouldn't have refused me. I turned my head. Luke still didn't look at me, rubbed his nose. Some personal grudges. He's feeling guilty, for example. Raymond sneered. He competed with me for top grades in school, stole my girlfriend in college, and snatched projects from me at work. I may be down on my luck, but I'm not dead yet, working with him on planning. Absolutely not. Hearing this, I understood. Mortal enemies. How come I never heard Luke mention this before? I clicked my tongue in annoyance. That's a shame then. I waved at Luke. Let's go. If they're unwilling, just forget it. Luke nodded. Turn around. 1 step, 2 steps. Wait. Raymond spoke. His brow furrowed tightly. The corners of my mouth curled up. But there was no turning back. Young Master Ormond needn't lower himself. After all, the Ormond family has plenty of people to choose from. His earlier resistance was merely because he saw through my intention to win him over, just trying to take advantage of the situation to humiliate Luke, that's all. At the same time, my words were also a reminder to him. He's not indispensable to me. Raymond took a deep breath. Head of the Madison household. Let's talk. Only then did I turn around and sit down with a smile. Half an hour later, I estimated that Christopher should be wrapping up soon over there. After instructing Luke to properly escort Raymond back, I returned to the car. Before long, Christopher's figure appeared within my line of sight. His expression was gloomy, mixed with a trace of worry. What were you up to? I played dumb. Nothing. I've been in the car the whole time. Christopher got in, didn't rush to start the car. His eyes were dark and heavy. He pressed his tongue against his cheek. Why not call off the engagement with Luke? The question was asked out of the blue. I was puzzled for a moment. Christopher turned to look over. Luke isn't outstanding in the Pay family. After you take control of the Madison family, you can completely cancel the engagement. Could it be that you actually want to marry him? Luke is the marriage candidate my father selected for me. His presence in the Pay family isn't particularly strong, of course. Back then I only held the title of eldest daughter in the Madison family, without any real power. He is more than a match for me. At that time Christopher was still my bodyguard, had not yet revealed the identity of the young master of the Luther family. I was quite jealous when I learned about this marriage. To appease him, I made significant sacrifices. At that time, I comforted him. I won't marry him. Once I become the head of the family, I'll cancel the engagement. Christopher stuck to me like glue. He pleaded. Then marry me instead. Okay, Kimberly just hadn't reached that step yet. His identity was exposed first. Too many things happened afterward. My situation is not good. It was Luke who approached me first. From then on, we appeared as a harmonious engaged couple in public. In private, we were boss and subordinate. Luke never steps out of line. After Christopher, he's the second person I can trust with my whole heart. Christopher suddenly brought him up, asking, Neil told you what? Christopher glanced at the eavesdropping device in the back seat upon hearing this. Then he looked at me with a cold smile. I was momentarily speechless, feeling a bit guilty and awkward. All right, I'll go see Luke. There are some things I don't want you involved in. Especially now that Christopher suddenly leaned in closer, trapping me against the seat. What about us? We've kissed, slept together, and you've used me. Don't you think it's too late to cut ties with me now? An intense aura of aggression enveloped me. I thought about it. I kissed Christopher on the cheek. He froze abruptly. I coaxed him in a soft voice. Don't push me away. The next second, my chin was gripped. Christopher glared at me resentfully. Kimberly, you've got me figured out, haven't you? I blinked innocently. Christopher, his chest heaving with anger, finally released me with resentment, retreated back to his seat. Neil said Luke is his man. Do as you see fit. With those words, Christopher started the car. With a perfect drift, he sped out of the parking lot, moving at incredible speed, clearly in a fit of rage. I lowered my gaze, concealing the suspicion in his eyes. I did have doubts at first about why Luke approached me proactively. He played his part too well. Did I trust the wrong person? I pressed my lips together, my hands involuntarily clenching. I remembered Luke giving me that pill. When we returned to Christopher's private villa, he dragged me all the way back to the room. He made as if to chain me up again. I resisted. I don't like it. Christopher turned back, with a cold laugh. I didn't like it at first either. I fell silent instantly, a click sound, the handcuffs locked around my wrist. Heavy and weighty. It didn't take long for chaos to erupt at the base. Neil found his way there, with great fanfare, countless casualties. At that moment, I lay in Christopher's arms. I slept restlessly. I dreamed of 3 years ago. That basement, Christopher is locked there by me, humiliated and in a sorry state. Kimberly, didn't you say you'd go back to Luther's house with me? If your father doesn't allow it, I can stay at Madison's house. I have no memory whatsoever of the Luther family and their affairs. To me, they are complete strangers. Kimberly, let me stay by your side. Okay. A full 2 months. Christopher was tortured beyond recognition. His life hangs by a thread. Yet all he wants is to stay by my side. The last time I went to see him, he seemed to have a premonition, the tragedy of laughter. Kimberly, if I die, please don't forget me. Counting back, from the time we met to being together, it's already been 12 years. Your name, your presence, they've almost taken up all of my memories. I love you, Kimberly. As I finished speaking these words, my gun muzzle pointed at him. Christopher's pupils constricted. Are you going to kill me yourself? He couldn't believe it. His whole body trembled. Despair and sorrow. Kimberly, you're so cruel. A dull pain in my chest jolted me awake. Tears had unknowingly soaked the pillow. Beside me, Christopher lay with his eyes closed, quietly asleep. I looked at him for a long, long time. So long that my chest felt tight, almost to the point of being unable to breathe. My vision went dark. I turned around. The chains clinked. When biting my own hand, the pent-up emotions were released. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. My back trembled uncontrollably. At that moment, I had no other choice. My father, his father, they all wanted him dead. Only if I act can he survive. I have no other choice. Behind, Christopher opened his eyes. He watched the trembling figure. His expression was indifferent, only his hand beneath the quilt quietly clenched. He had just heard her sleep-talking. He knew she was dreaming of 3 years ago. Kimberly, do you also feel fear and sorrow? That gunshot back then was so resolute, so cold. Do you also cry? The next morning, when I woke up, Christopher was no longer by my side. The wound on the tiger's mouth was bandaged. The blood at the corner of the mouth was also cleaned. I sat up in a daze. It took a while for my thoughts to recover. Luke sent me a message, informing me that all personnel at the base have been relocated, and took the opportunity to eliminate quite a few moles in the process. Neil made such a big fuss, gave the Madison family's enemies an opportunity to exploit. For the next while, he probably won't have time to bother me. Meanwhile, Raymond's side has also started moving. Family head, Christopher's side, don't worry, I know my limits. Before his death, my father told me that the Luther family is divided into 2 branches, the light and the dark. If you want to destroy the Luther family, you must start with the dark branch. The dark branch cannot see the light, touch it and you die. And Christopher is currently the head of the Dark Vein organization. From what I know about Christopher, the more classified something is, the more likely it's placed in plain sight. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest. I glanced around the room's layout. I didn't openly rummage through things. What if Christopher had installed surveillance? In the following days, Christopher didn't stick to me all the time. After all, Luther family's young master had quite a few matters to attend to. That night, Christopher didn't return until very late. It seemed something rather troublesome had occurred in the dark vein. At midnight, I opened my eyes. After confirming no one was in the room, I casually unlocked the handcuffs. After a thorough search, I found a USB drive hidden in the dressing table. I glanced out the window. The distant lighthouse was always lit. There was always someone ready to meet me. Put the USB drive in my pocket. I turned around. At that very moment, stumbling footsteps came from the doorway. My heart tightened. And I immediately returned to the bedside. Just as the handcuffs were put on, Christopher pushed the door open and entered. In the darkness, he staggered unsteadily. The smell of blood was overwhelming. Christopher, are you hurt? A sharp crack sounded. Christopher turned on the light. His face was pale, covered in blood. I was startled. Christopher, He staggered a few steps and collapsed to the ground. I helped him up. My palm was stained with his blood, my brows furrowed involuntarily. Worry stirred in my heart. The medicine box was just within my reach. I quickly stopped his bleeding and bandaged the wound. Christopher leaned weakly against my shoulder, still able to laugh. "Doesn't it remind you of the past, when I got injured on a mission for you and you bandaged me?" My hand paused. My heart skipped a beat. How did this happen? Matters of the Luther family are not convenient to disclose to the head of the Madison family. Then, his tone shifted. "But Christopher's matter will never be hidden from Kimberly." He raised his head. "In what capacity are you asking me, Kimberly?" The air fell silent. We locked eyes, a rare moment of peace, until Christopher repeated, "By what authority do you ask me, Kimberly?" There was a hint of urgency in the tone, and anticipation. My heart skipped a beat. I averted my gaze, struggling to keep the voice calm. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" Christopher had a flash in his eyes. He smiled self-deprecatingly. "Take my hand. Press it against my heart. Here, Kimberly, here." This heart should have stopped beating 3 years ago. My fingers curled. The voice was low. "Christopher, it's time to come out." My wrist was suddenly gripped tight. I was pulled up and crashed into his embrace. He ignored the injuries on his body, restraining me tightly. His expression turned obsessive. "Kimberly, do you even have a heart?" Eyes filled with a mix of resentment and affection. "At this point, why are you still pretending to be clueless? All these years, under the pretense of assassination, I've approached you time and again, testing you. Can you really not feel anything at all?" Christopher raised his voice sharply. "Do I really have to say that I, Christopher, just can't let you go, even after you shot me, wanting me dead?" I still couldn't bring myself to retaliate, stubbornly loving you with all my heart. "You made me the biggest joke in all of City G, letting everyone know that the young master of the Luther family was willingly your dog, unable to be driven away, only to nearly lose his life in the end. Kimberly, do you even have a heart?" His eyes were red as he questioned. His voice trembled at the end. I was flustered and at a loss. I didn't know how to respond. Just at this moment, Christopher felt the USB drive in my pocket. In an instant, his rationality collapsed. Completely defeated. "What is this? Kimberly, tell me what this is. You followed me here for this, didn't you? Do you know what kind of situation I'll be in if you take this away? By then, even without you lifting a finger, Father would kill me first. After 3 years, you still want me dead, don't you?" He pushed me away in anger, pulled out a gun. When the muzzle pointed at me, it felt like a flashback to 3 years ago. Only this time, our positions were reversed. I raise my hand, grasp the muzzle. The moment it presses against my heart, Christopher's hand trembles violently. I looked at him, resolute, indifferent. "Now either kill me or let me go." Christopher clenched his jaw, veins bulged. "Don't think I wouldn't dare." I didn't say a word, just calmly watching him. The next second, the bullet is chambered, accompanied by Christopher's voice, suppressed with rage. "I told you I'd kill you." A bitter smile curled at the corner of my lips. I closed my eyes. At this moment, kill me, then. The burdens I've carried all these years, far too many. I'm so tired too. To die by his hand, excellent. This shot was what I owed him in the first place. Yet, the expected scene did not unfold. Click sound. Christopher's hand fell limp. The gun slipped from his hand. His body went limp immediately after, kneeling on the ground, covering the face with both hands, shoulders trembling. "Get out. I never want to see you again." I stood before Christopher, reached out instinctively, then froze mid-air. Finally, the handcuffs were unlocked, walked past him. When reaching the door, Christopher spoke. "Kimberly, next time." "There won't be a next time." I didn't turn around. I didn't dare to turn around. "All right." The moment I stepped out the door, a sharp pain pierced my heart, no less intense than the gunshot from years ago. I fought back my tears, step by step. "Stay away from Christopher. The person waiting outside to assist me has been waiting for a long time, Master." "Did you get the item?" I shook my head, mechanical voice. "He's discovered us. Let's find another way." The person hesitated to speak, finally spoke out. "You never intended to bring it out from the beginning, did you? You've gone soft." I turned to look back. The tears could no longer be held back. Do I really have to kill him a second time? At the same time, Christopher stood by the window, silence, desolation, behind him. His subordinates seethed with indignation. Thanks to the young master's foresight, he prepared a fake USB drive in advance. This way, whether we can capture the Kimberly prototype or not, we don't have to worry about her putting the young master in mortal danger. Christopher waved his hand dismissively, signaling for him to leave. In the vast room, only Christopher remained. He watched the car gradually disappear into the distance outside the window, voice bitter. Would it kill you to go easy on me for once? After returning to base, Luke saw me but didn't ask about the USB drive. It doesn't seem surprising, just sighed. Rest well, I'll take care of everything. I nodded, went back to the room and fell asleep immediately. I didn't inquire about what happened afterward. Luke handled it with ease. Neil was too impatient and soon couldn't keep up. The Ormond family had Raymond present, and their previous cooperation with Neil was never sincere to begin with. Seeing he couldn't hold up the Madison family, I didn't reach out again. The day I returned to the Madison family, Neil had been waiting for a long time. Sister, long time no see. Thank you for shielding me from so many open and hidden attacks, too many enemies. There's nothing I can do about it. Who would have thought Neil would smile and say, it's only right, I'd do anything for my sister? That sounded a bit strange. I frowned slightly. Neil walked towards me. The voice was gentle. I've been very worried about you, sister, during this time. How is your...
Kimberly, the young master of the Luther family, publicly shot and killed the head of the Madison family, trending on City G, causing citywide panic and unrest. Christopher was arrested. The police ordered the sealing of Luther's home for a thorough investigation. Luther's father arrived at the police station, his face dark with anger when he saw Christopher. I told you to kill her, not to do it in the middle of the street. At this moment, Christopher had no desire to keep up the act. He only wanted to know one thing: is she still alive? Luther snorted coldly. She's lucky. Her heart was naturally positioned slightly off-center, which saved her life. In an instant, Christopher seemed to have all his strength drained away. Tears of joy. That's good. That's good. Luther father's disappointment in his son's failure to meet expectations. This time I can't protect you anymore. You should know what to say and what not to say. Otherwise, even if she can live, I will make sure she dies. Christopher's pupils contracted sharply. All right. Luther father snorted heavily and turned to leave. Not long after he left, another person came before Christopher. Christopher looked up. He recognized a familiar face. Luke remained calm. I just found out. We've been at cross purposes. What do you mean? Luke sat down. Both Kimberly and I are with the military. City G has intricate power dynamics, with 3 long-standing major families whose dark businesses permeate every corner. The military has long been troubled by them. We orchestrated chaos among the 3 families precisely to facilitate our investigation. Christopher quickly grasped the situation. Including the Madison family. Luke nodded. Including the Madison family, he explained. Kimberly initially just wanted to compete for the position of family head, to clear her mother's name. When she was young, her mother was falsely accused of infidelity and, unable to bear the burden, jumped to her death. She watched helplessly as her mother passed away, and from then on, she fell ill and never recovered. Later, she kept a low profile and bided her time. As you know, Luke paused. But there are some things I think you don't know. Christopher, his intuition is related to what happened 3 years ago. Luke narrated in detail. 3 years ago, Christopher's true identity was exposed. At that time, Kimberly didn't fully understand the feud between the 2 families, believing their friendship could resolve the conflict through marriage. Meanwhile, she could leverage Christopher's help to quickly ascend to the position of family head. But she never expected Mr. Madison's initial reaction upon learning of this matter. Suppress the news and imprison Christopher in the basement. Kimberly pleaded desperately, sparing Christopher's life for the time being, to save Christopher. Kimberly went to Luther's house, but the answer from Luther's house was, dead is dead. The Luther family even regarded Christopher as a disgrace. Because Christopher was her bodyguard, she had once flaunted him publicly. Kimberly finally realized the feud between the 2 families was beyond reconciliation. Back then, Mr. Madison wanted to Christopher dead and gone. The Luther family wanted to erase this disgrace. Only Kimberly tried every possible means to protect Christopher. That day, Mr. Madison wanted to kill Christopher in the shadows. The Luther family had been waiting for a long time. No matter who strikes, Christopher must die. So, Kimberly chose to fire the gun herself and quickly revealed Christopher's identity, using public opinion to force the Luther family to take him back. You grew up together. You should know how good her marksmanship is. If I truly wanted to kill you, I'd aim for the heart. That bullet might as well have pierced her own chest. By daylight, she was the newly empowered family head, dominating all adversaries. Her authority knew no bounds. By midnight, panic had spread. Guilt, self-blame, and worry came crashing down. It engulfed her, drowning her. Countless times, she secretly went to the hospital to see him. Countless times. She prayed in her heart for his safety. She firmly believed that with Christopher's abilities, as long as he could survive this ordeal, establishing a foothold in the Luther family wouldn't be difficult. Christopher felt a sharp pain in his chest. I know, therefore. He always believed Kimberly was forced. No matter how he asked, Kimberly never relented. Why won't she tell me? Luke glanced at him. There's more to it, but I don't know. It was also at that time Kimberly realized the cruelty and ruthlessness of the three great families being used by the military. Later, Christopher became an undercover agent for the police. A coincidence, but with the same goal. The military took action personally. City G, everyone was in fear for their own safety. When I woke up in the hospital, I had no idea what day it was. It took me a long time to recover. Fortunate in hindsight, still alive. Surprisingly, quite a tough life. After lying in the hospital bed for a few days, someone came to see me. Christopher. He looked much more weathered, with a stubbly beard. Approaching the hospital bed, Christopher knelt down. Kimberly, I already know everything. After hearing him speak, I froze for a moment. He asked me, why weren't you willing to tell me? Or are you afraid? I avoided his gaze, unable to speak. Christopher didn't push me either. Come to the hospital to accompany me every day, soon. The Ormond family was investigated. Raymond knew what we were going to do, but I didn't expect him to still be willing. I remember that day. He touched his own legs, his eyes empty. Affection runs thin in wealthy families. I used to hold on to some hope. But then, my beloved younger brother orchestrated the car accident. My respected father turned a blind eye. Instead, it was Luke, who had always been at odds with me, that risked danger to pull me from the car. He saved my life. I resented him for it. Better to have died then than live a crippled life like this. But I hate them even more. Selfish, hypocritical. Have you ever seen? Forget it. I'm afraid it might scare you. How could I not know those black industries? Who was being persecuted? Meanwhile, the Madison family was also gone. In the end, only the Luther family remained, putting up a desperate resistance. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Christopher came to pick me up. Good news. Want to hear it? The Luther family was swiftly dealt with by the military. Now, can you tell me the reason? Kimberly, he thought I wouldn't speak. Are you afraid of the Luther family's retaliation? I looked at Christopher, feeling somewhat helpless and a little sad. All right, I'll tell you. Christopher, it was my father who deliberately had you kidnapped, made you lose your memory, and then sent you to me. Back when Christopher first woke up, I wanted to tell him the truth. To tell him I never meant to kill him. But father stopped me. My dear daughter, I advise you to abandon this thought. Christopher, I intentionally captured him. I was also the one who caused his amnesia. I wanted to use him, to exploit his feelings for you. I want the Luther family to know no peace. At that moment, my mind went completely blank. My father was solely focused on revenge against the Luther family. Even I was part of his calculations. In the end, it all boiled down to one word. Love. The white moonlight he had been longing for married into the Luther family. Love turns to hate. Christopher remained silent for a long while. I don't remember anything before I was 10. All I know is, I love you. I shook my head. You see, my father's goal has been achieved. City G. After a major reshuffling of power, with the private savings I had left, I prepared to settle in another city. I didn't tell anyone when I left, including Luke, but unexpectedly, Christopher showed up. Covered in dust and grime, out of breath. Kimberly, I remember now. I went to see a doctor recently and recovered my memories from before I was 10 years old. I know what you're worried about. You're afraid I'll hate you when I regain my memories. You blame yourself for your father using me. Now, I can tell you with certainty and conviction, I love you. Kimberly, this won't change in the past 3 years. nor will it in the decades to come. I looked at him. Laughter turned to tears. I don't want to stay in City G anymore. The end.